I stood in my kitchen one evening, staring at the pill bottles lined up on the counter. Antibiotics, pain relievers, antihistamines. All of them came from a pharmacy 20 minutes away, which got them from a warehouse, which got them from factories I'd never seen. The entire system worked smoothly, until I started asking myself one uncomfortable question. What happens when it doesn't? It wasn't paranoia that got me thinking this way. It was watching supply chains crack during recent years. Empty shelves where cold medicine used to be, delayed shipments, pharmacies, rationing prescriptions. I realized how completely dependent I'd become on a system I had no control over, and that realization unsettled me deeply. I'm not a survivalist. I don't stockpile freeze-dried meals or build bunkers, but I am someone who likes having options, especially when it comes to my family's health. So I started researching something I'd never seriously considered before. How did people take care of themselves before modern pharmacies existed? What I found changed everything I thought I knew about my backyard. Turns out, for most of human history, medicine didn't come from stores. It came from gardens. Not mystical herb gardens tended by wise elders, but ordinary family plots, where people grew food and, just as importantly, grew remedies. These weren't alternatives to real medicine, they were real medicine. The only medicine available, I discovered accounts from rural communities. Historical records from isolated settlements, even my own grandmother's stories about what her mother kept growing behind their house. There was a practical knowledge there, passed down through generations, that we'd almost completely lost. Not because it didn't work, but because we didn't need it anymore. Until maybe we did. That's when I decided to transform my own backyard into what I started calling a medicinal ecosystem, not to replace doctors or modern medicine, but to create a layer of resilience. To have something growing right outside my door that could help with common issues if access to conventional options became limited. The first plant I researched was one I already had, aloe vera. I'd kept it on my windowsill for years, occasionally breaking off a leaf for minor burns, but I didn't realize how extensively it had been used historically for skin issues. Burns, cuts, irritations, ancient Egyptian medical texts mention it. It appeared in traditional Chinese medicine. It wasn't magic, it was simply effective for certain things, and it required almost zero maintenance. In a crisis scenario where treating minor wounds quickly mattered, having aloe readily available could prevent infections without needing to access external supplies. Then, I looked into mint. Not just any mint, but peppermint specifically. I learned it had been cultivated for thousands of years, primarily for digestive issues, stomach discomfort, nausea, bloating. I planted it in a contained area because mint spreads aggressively, which actually made it perfect for this purpose. Even if I neglected everything else, the mint would survive. During disruptions, when stress-related stomach issues become common, or when food storage leads to digestive problems, having fresh mint available meant I could make tea that historically helped countless people manage these exact symptoms. Chamomile came next. I'd always associated it with sleepy time tea, but its history went much deeper. Roman soldiers reportedly used it. It appeared in medieval monastery gardens. The reason was consistent. It helped people relax and sleep. During crises, when anxiety spikes and sleep becomes difficult, this matters more than it sounds. Chronic stress and sleep deprivation weaken everything else. Chamomile won't cure insomnia, but generations of people used it to take the edge off, and it grows easily in most climates. For those who want to learn exactly which medicinal plants can be grown at home, we left a guide in the first link in the description with the best options for backyard growing. Garlic surprised me most. I knew it as food, not medicine, but historical uses of garlic for immune support run incredibly deep. It was given to Egyptian pyramid builders for strength. It appeared in plague remedies during the Middle Ages, whether those worked or not. Modern research has actually investigated compounds in garlic that show antimicrobial properties. I started growing it not just for cooking, but because in a scenario where staying healthy becomes critical and medical help is limited, traditional immune-supporting plants become valuable insurance. Ginger root took more effort since I'm not in a tropical climate, but I managed to grow it in containers. Historically, ginger was treasured for nausea and inflammation. Sailors used it for seasickness. Traditional medicine systems across Asia incorporated it for digestive issues and pain. When I researched crisis preparedness, I kept seeing the same problems. Limited food variety, causing stomach issues, physical strain causing inflammation, stress causing nausea. Ginger addressed all three, and the root could be harvested, stored, and used for months. Echinacea became my immune system plant. Native American tribes used it extensively before European contact. Early American settlers adopted it. It fell out of favor when antibiotics arrived, but the traditional use was clear, supporting the body's defenses during illness. Scientific studies on echinacea show mixed results, but generations of practical use suggested it did something. In a situation where preventing illness matters as much as treating it, having echinacea growing seemed like reasonable preparation. Calendula, or pot marigold, went into the ground specifically for skincare. Historical records showed it used for wounds, rashes, infections. It wasn't just folk tradition. Actual medical texts from centuries ago documented its applications. The flowers contain compounds now known to have anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. In emergencies where minor injuries could escalate without proper treatment, having calendula to make salves or compresses provided a backup option our ancestors relied on regularly. Thyme earned its spot for respiratory support. Ancient Greeks burned it as incense for breathing issues. Medieval Europeans used it for coughs and congestion. The plant contains thymol, now recognized as having antimicrobial properties, and used in some modern products. Respiratory infections are among the most common health issues during any crisis, especially in crowded or stressful conditions. Having thyme available to make steam inhalations or teas meant having access to something people actually used successfully. For these problems, before modern cough syrups existed, lemon balm became my anxiety plant. It's in the mint family, equally aggressive, equally resilient. Historical use, focused on calming nerves and lifting mood. Monasteries grew it. Herbalists prescribed it for nervous conditions. During my research into crisis psychology, I learned that mental health often deteriorates faster than physical health. During prolonged stress, having something natural that traditionally helped people feel calmer, that required no prescription or pharmacy access, seemed as important as anything treating physical symptoms. Rosemary completed my collection. I initially grew it for cooking, but discovered its traditional medicinal uses ran deep. Circulation, memory, pain relief. It appeared in ancient Greek medicine. Shakespeare referenced it. The aromatic oils contain compounds now studied for various properties. But what struck me most was how versatile it was. Food preservation, medicinal use, aromatic therapy. In a self-sufficient scenario, plants that serve multiple purposes become invaluably practical. If this opened your eyes to how powerful backyard plants can be, check the first link in the description. We placed a guide showing the best medicinal plants you can grow at home. As these plants established themselves in my yard, something shifted in how I thought about preparedness. I'd always imagined emergency preparation as stockpiling, buying more, storing more. But watching these plants grow taught me that resilience could also mean producing, not just storing. These 10 plants, once established, would return year after year. They required minimal input. They'd survive neglect better than most garden vegetables. And they addressed the most common health issues humans face. More importantly, they represented reclaimed knowledge. Every one of these plants had been essential to households for centuries, not because people were primitive, but because they worked well enough to earn a permanent place in family gardens. That knowledge didn't disappear because it was wrong. It disappeared because we didn't need it until circumstances change. I'm not suggesting anyone abandon modern medicine. What I'm saying is that depending entirely on complex supply chains for basic wellness creates vulnerability. During natural disasters, economic disruptions, or any scenario where normal access breaks down, having these plants growing means having options. The real lesson wasn't about any individual plant. It was about autonomy, about not being entirely helpless if the pharmacy closes or the delivery doesn't come, about having something growing right outside that could help. The same way it helped millions of people before us who didn't have alternatives. I think about that row of pill bottles sometimes. Still, they're on my counter. I haven't thrown them away. But now, when I look out my kitchen window, I see something else. 10 different plants, growing quietly, representing 10 different solutions that don't depend on anything except sun, water, and time. Preparation doesn't always start with stockpiles. Sometimes it starts with seeds. If this documentary resonated with you, if you're starting to see your own backyard differently, then subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people reclaiming practical knowledge that shouldn't have been forgotten. There's more to learn, more to grow, and more to discover about what real resilience actually looks like. Join us.